All right, so today we're going to dive headfirst onto this, well, kind of wobbly economic tightrope, you know,
Yeah.
Thailand's economic climate. That's what we're talking about.
And that tightrope image, yeah, it's pretty literal. Thailand's trying to balance some pretty big forces, right? You've got a strong currency,
Yeah.
government spending, oh, and don't forget the whole global shift in financial power, too.
Yeah, no kidding. Lot going on. We're digging into some pretty interesting sources for this one. Bangkok Post articles, some chatter we found on Thai YouTube, even went to the Bank of Thailand's website.
Lots of different angles.
Exactly. And those different perspectives, they all highlight this, well, this tension, between keeping things stable, keeping things predictable, but also, trying to grow the economy at the same time.
It's a tough needle to thread.
No kidding. So let's start with something that hits home for everyone here in Thailand. The Thai Baht. Bangkok Post is saying it hit a 30-month high recently. On the surface, that sounds like, well, like a good thing, right? Strong currency, gotta be good.
See, that's where the tightrope comes in, right? A strong baht, it means anything you buy from overseas. Cheaper, great for consumers. But if you're a business trying to sell Thai products to the rest of the world, suddenly your stuff just got a whole lot more expensive.
And those articles, those Bangkok Post articles, they really dug into what those exporters are dealing with. I mean, imagine being told every little 1% rise in the baht, that's 100 billion baht, gone, just wiped out from potential export revenue. That's got to hurt.
Especially now with every industry fighting for every inch in this global market, it's a tough blow.
It is. So naturally, you've got the Thai Chamber of Commerce saying, hey, Bank of Thailand, you got to do something. But what can they realistically even do at this point?
Right. Talk about a tough spot to be in. And, well, at the center of all this, the governor of the Bank of Thailand, Sethaput Suthiwartnarueput.
Yeah, talk about a resume. The angel governor, they call him, and for good reason. World Bank, McKinsey, crisis advisor. The guy's seen it all.
And he said it himself, the BIOT, it's independent. And that's huge. It means he doesn't have to bow to pressure from businesses or even, the government if he doesn't think it's good for Thailand in the long run.
Right. He's calling the shots.
Yeah.
But here's where it gets interesting. He's keeping interest rates high. 2.5%, the goal. Keep inflation in check. Makes sense. On paper, at least, but... But some folks, some of those YouTube commentators we were looking at, they were pointing out that inflation's been, well, it's been pretty darn low for a while now, like 12 months straight.
And to make things even more complicated,
Yeah.
the Bank of Thailand's own website, they're reporting record profits for Thai banks this year, over 226 billion baht.
Yeah.
So you've got one sector doing amazingly well, and others, well, not so much.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder who's actually benefiting from this whole stability focus.
It's almost like it's picking winners and losers, isn't it?
It makes you wonder.
It really does. And that leads us to, well, to another piece of this whole puzzle. The government's idea for this big digital wallet scheme. So they're talking about 500 billion baht, right? That's what they're saying. Just boom, put it right into digital wallets, get people spending, get the economy moving. Sounds like a pretty surefire way to boost things, doesn't it?
Yeah, at least, on paper it does. But this is where things they get kind of tense. You've got the government, they want to see things pick up, right? Fast growth. But then you've got the BLT, the Bank of Thailand, and they're all about control, about keeping things stable, even if it means slower growth. And our sources, they're saying Governor Sethaput, he's not on board with this whole digital wallet thing, not at that scale anyway.
Yeah, and he didn't exactly keep it quiet either. I mean, he came right out and said it publicly, even suggested a much smaller program, like, a tenth of the size, which is, well, it's kind of strange when you think about it, because just last year, he was all for the government borrowing big. Really big during that whole COVID mess.
That's the thing. You got to look at the context, right? Back in 2024, during COVID, the whole world was freaking out. Markets were a mess. Nobody knew what was going to happen. Government stepping in. Back then, that was seen as, well, essential, basically the only way to stop a total economic meltdown. Now, things are, well, they're more stable, at least relatively speaking. So the governor, he's shifting gears, right? Fiscal prudence, that's the name of the game now. Long-term stability, even if it ruffles some feathers.
And ruffle some feathers, it did. I mean, talk about a power struggle, right?
Yeah.
You've got the government, they're elected, they answer to the people, and they want action. But then you've got these, well, I guess you could call them technocrats over the central bank with their fancy models and their long-term projections, and they're saying, hold on, not so fast. It makes you wonder who's really in charge here.
It's a balancing act, no doubt about it. And the Bank of Thailand, they're very clear about their priorities. Their website even says it, price stability, a resilient financial system. They're all about those calculated moves, even if it means maybe things don't move as quickly as some people might like.
Right, playing it safe. Which brings us to, well, I guess you could call it the elephant in the room, right? This whole de-dollarization thing. It feels like this massive, like tectonic plates shifting kind of change happening in the background while everyone's focused on what's happening here in Thailand. Can you break it down for us? What is de-dollarization and why should we care about it here in Thailand?
Basically, de-dollarization, it's the U.S. dollar, right? The big kahuna, the world's currency, it's losing its grip little by little. Countries, they're starting to use other currencies, doing business in other ways. Part of it's political, part of it is, well, they just want more control over their own economies. And for Thailand, well, the baht, it's pegged to the U.S. dollar. That's the problem.
So what you're saying is Thailand's economy, it's basically hitched to this, well, this roller coaster that might be heading downhill.
Pretty much. And that's where things get, well, they get a little worrying, right? Because if the dollar goes down, the baht's going with it. And on top of that, we've got the whole strong baht strategy, which, don't get me wrong, it has its benefits. But some of those YouTube commentators we were looking at, they were saying this whole setup, it's making it harder for Thailand to compete, especially with countries like China and Vietnam. They've got way more flexibility with their currencies.
And we're seeing it, right? I mean, it's hitting those exporters especially hard.
It is, and they're going head-to-head with countries like China, Vietnam, and their currencies. Way more, I don't know, adaptable, I guess.
Yeah, it's like they're running a race, but Thailand's got, like, ankle weights on or something.
Something like that. And the Bangkok Post, they were saying, well, some experts think this whole dollar peg thing, it's putting Thai exports at a 20% disadvantage.
20%?
Yeah.
Seriously? I mean, how can you even compete with that?
That's the million-baht question. Right. And you've got the governor, he's sticking to his guns, stability first, independence, all that. He's willing to take the heat, even if it means pushing back against the government if he thinks it's the right thing to do for Thailand long term.
Right, long-term vision, that's his thing. But it makes you wonder, right? Because we saw those YouTube videos, the Thai ones, and they were talking a lot about the governor's personality, like his style, how he's not afraid to ruffle some feathers. Is that part of it? Is it fair to say, like, his personality, is that actually influencing these big economic decisions?
It's tempting to think so, right? And people here in Thailand, I mean, they're definitely talking about it, that's for sure. Our sources, they back that up. But at the same time, you got to be careful, right? You can't just say, oh, it's because of his personality. That's too simple. There's always more to it than that. The data, what's happening globally, the political pressure, even, I don't know, maybe just what he believes deep down about how to lead, that all factors in.
It's complicated, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So we've covered a lot of ground here. We talked about those exporters, how they're dealing with the strong baht, the government's plan to jumpstart things with that whole digital wallet scheme. And the BOT, the Bank of Thailand, they're standing firm, stability, keeping inflation in check, even if it means some people aren't happy about it. And then, of course, there's that whole de-dollarization thing looming in the background, changing everything, really. It's a lot to wrap your head around.
It is. But that's what we're here for, right? Yeah. To dig into this stuff, to lay it all out there. We're not here to tell you what to think, just to give you the information, the different sides of the story, so you can make up your own mind.
Exactly. So for everyone listening, here's what I want you to take away from all of this.
Yeah.
Think about it. Really think about it. Does this whole stability thing, even if it means maybe slower growth, does that sit right with you? Is that what you want for Thailand's economic future? And what about those exporters? Should the BOT be doing more to help them out, even if it means changing course? And then there's that big question, the one nobody seems to have a clear answer to. What happens when the dollar isn't king of the hill anymore? How does Thailand fit into that new world? Big questions. And the thing is, these aren't just questions for the experts, for the politicians. These are questions that affect all of us here in Thailand.
They do. And the more we understand these things, the more we talk about them, the better equipped we are, all of us, to face whatever's coming next.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So keep asking those questions, keep digging for answers, and keep the conversation going. Because the future of Thailand's economy, that's not just something that happens to us, it's something we all have a say in.